Hey guys, welcome back to Reading with Mo. It's me, Mo. And today, we're going to be reading another book based on Black History Month. And these are one of my favorites because they're an animation, but it's about history. This book is called The Stone Thrower, and it's about the African-American football player Chuck Early and how he grew up. I'm so excited to be reading with you. Turn the page and let's get started. This is a story that happened a long time ago in a place that's far away, unless of course you happen to be from a small town in Ohio called Portsmouth. It's a story about a kid who lived in hard times, a kid who had a big dream that seemed almost impossible. Have you ever had a big dream that seemed impossible? Chuck Early was born in Portsmouth, Ohio in 1950. Back then, there were separate schools and separate restrooms and separate neighborhoods for Black people because some Americans didn't believe that all people were equal, regardless of their skin color. Why do you think that happened in American history? Chuck grew up in the North End, a neighborhood that was separated from the rest of the town by a set of long, stony railroad tracks. The buildings in the North End were run down, and there was nowhere to swim when the weather got hot because the pool was on the other side of the train tracks. As you can see on the other side, Chuck would play with the fire hydrant to get cooled off in the hot summer days. And I don't think that's fair. Do you? Chuck's mother had dropped out of school when she was very young. She had to work to raise her son all by herself. She worked long hours and she was paid very little. Why do you think she was paid very little? I think it's because she was a Black woman that had no other support. Do you think that's why? Let's turn the page. She wanted things to be different for Chuck. Those coal trains that come through, they don't stop here, she said. They don't stop until they get where they're going. I want you to be just like that. Do you remember where you're going, son? Chuck smiled at her with a big, broad grin. I'm going to get out of the North End and get my education. She smiled and squeezed him tightly. That's right, she said. When Chuck came home from school one day, he felt his tummy rumbling. He couldn't remember the last time he had eaten. The only thing he found in the cupboard was a wheat bar. He chewed and he chomped, but it tasted like twigs. It felt thin and dry in his throat. Worst of all, it still left him hungry. How could he get out of the North End if they didn't even have enough money for food? Well, that's one of the things that happen in Black African families. Some don't have enough money to buy food. On a crisp fall day, Chuck walked towards the train tracks. He scuffed his shoes against the pavement as the wind whispered gently, as the leaves tumbled and danced and cracked beneath his footsteps. Just then, Chuck heard a long, thin whistle in the distance. The ground began to rumble, and the train tracks shook. The stones along the tracks jumped and bounced like hot kernels of popcorn. Thick gray clouds huffed and puffed from the smokestacks of a train as it chugged down the railroad tracks towards him. Whew. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha went the train. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. It went as the dark coal cars crawled along the tracks like a trail of black ants, each one marked N&W for Norfolk and Western. Suddenly, Chuck had an idea. He selected a stone from the side of the tracks and rumbled it between his fingers. It felt rough, like sandpaper. He tossed it in the air and then he caught it. Perfect, he said. What do you think's gonna happen? What do you think Chuck's gonna do? As the train charged towards him, Chuck fixed his eye on the end on one of the cars. As the train passed and the wind whooshed against him, Chuck pulled back his arm and threw the stone as hard as he could. Thud, he missed. He picked another stone and tried again. Thud. What do you think Chuck's gonna get out of this? Do you think he's gonna be successful doing this? Do you think he's gonna get into trouble? I think he will. As the last car chugged towards him, Chuck narrowed his eye so that he could see the end more clearly. He shifted back and forth on his toes, and then he waited. He threw and watched the big stone store. Bang! Chuck smiled and raised his hand in victory. Why do you think he's so excited that he finally hit the cart? Would you do the same? After that day, Chuck often went back to the train tracks. Eventually, he learned to throw the stones just right, so that when the train was going by and the wind rushed against him, he could always hit his target. And as you can see, he's younger, a bit older, and now he's a teen in the orange hoodie. He's really growing up. I think he's been doing this for a long time. At school and at football practice, Chuck did the same thing. When he learned new things, and he had to do the same thing over and over, he thought about standing by the railroad tracks, throwing stones again and again until he got it. One day, his coach asked him to do something important, something that a required kid with determination and focus could do. Chuck's coach wanted him to play quarterback, and he wanted him to throw the ball and lead the team on the field. Some people didn't think boys like Chuck were smart enough to play quarterback, but Chuck's coach believed in him, and so did his teammates. But it wasn't easy. At the game against the rival school, Chuck played a team that was lean and mean. The players called him names, and they ran at him with anger in their eyes and in their hearts. Crush him, they cried. Get him, they yelled. With a few seconds left on the leaderboard, Chuck's team was down to 5. The team huddled together. They bent down, arms around each other. They didn't want to lose, but there was only more time for one play. Chuck got the ball and looked down the field as one of his teammates started to sprint towards the end zone. A player on the opposing team rushed towards Chuck, quickly and steadily, hungry for the ball, hungry for a tackle. Chuck waited, his feet tiptoeing in the soft grass as the defenseman raced closer and closer. Chuck thought about those days at the railroad tracks, the rush of the train, the feel of the wind, the rumble of the earth underneath him. He narrowed his eyes so that he could see was his teammate running faster and faster. Chuck threw the ball and it soared through the air. It spiraled down the field, floating, spinning. Everyone waited. Everyone watched as the ball dropped into the hands of Chuck's teammate as he stepped into the end zone. Chuck smiled and raised his arms. Touchdown. Victory. So now, I know why he kept on throwing those stones. It was because he wanted to be a football player. Thank you guys for reading this book with me. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with all your friends. And like in the last video, go check out Beckett Farms Twitter page and you'll see some of my books on there. I'll see you next time on Reading with Mo. Thank you guys. Bye.